So hello dear friends, today I will explain about the carbohydrate digestion and absorption, and this is important portion of the gastrointestinal tract physiology, and it is will be equally effective in the biochemistry GI block also. So physiology and biochemistry we will be dealing simultaneously, and from this digestion and absorption very frequently the short notes are asked uh, about to write the digestion and absorption of the carbohydrate, and important MCQs and viva questions are also uh, frequently asked from this digestion and absorption. So let's see, I will explain all these about all these. You carbohydrate, you know, um, carbohydrate, the sources of the carbohydrate that we eat. This digestion I will talking in the human body like omnivorous animal. We are the omnivorous. In herbivorous, there are difference, like main difference is that there is found the cellulase enzyme in herbivorous animal, and in us, um, in omnivorous and uh, omnivorous and like that feed on the animal food only. These categories animal or species don't have the cellulase, very important enzyme that is used for the digestion of the cellulose. So we cannot digest the cellulose. Why? Because we don't have the enzyme cellulase. This is very important MCQ and viva question. I will be explaining in detail. So let's see the sources, carbohydrate sources. Major sources are major sources of the carbohydrates that we eat are the mm, most and foremost starch. We eat the we derive the nutrition from the starch like carbohydrate source. Then we also consume sucrose. This is the polysaccharide, and this is sucrose is the disaccharide found in the uh, sucrose, also known as cane sugar. Cane sugar. Since it is found, this sucrose is found in the cane sugar mainly, so known as the cane sugar. And then we eat most frequently are the milk uh, derived carbohydrate source, that is lactose. So these are the major carbohydrate sources from which we derive the nutrition. So and besides these major sources, other like uh, some people drink like alcohol, and we also eat pyruvic acid, dextrins, and other minor carbohydrate sources. So that comprises the very less amount compared to this major amount. So we will talking of the digestion of this, and the finally the digestion product, that will be the monosaccharides, that their absorption also. So okay, from the digestion, one again important MCQ question will arise, that digestion of the carbohydrate starts from where? So answer is, it starts from the mouth and continues till the into the stomach till the pH drops below the 4. How I will be showing that. Okay, so digestion, let's talk about the digestion. The first and foremost point is the digestion of carb begins or starts in mouth and stomach means what? Its digestion starts from the mouth. This is very important MCQ and viva question. Other like protein and fat digestion, uh, protein digestion mainly occur in the stomach and fat digestion in the small intestine. Once it reaches the small intestine, there only occurs the digestion of the proper digestion of the fat. So in case of the fat, there is also present some amount of the lingual lipase that may digest the fat in some extent, but not so much prominent like that of the digestion of the carbohydrates in the mouth. Then why carbohydrate in mouth occurs? Let us see. In mouth what happens? In mouth and stomach, like mainly digestion of the starch will occur. Starches, what happens? Ptyalin, this is the salivary alpha amylase, and remember this ptyalin, this alpha amylase is also known as the ptyalin, but the source, if the alpha amylase is from the salivary gland, then only you can call it ptyalin, otherwise in pancreatic alpha amylase you cannot call that ptyalin. So this is again your important MCQ and viva question, that salivary amylase is also known as the ptyalin. What it will do in the mouth and stomach, it will break down these carbohydrates, starches into the maltose and 3 to 9 polysaccharide polysaccharides of carbohydrate. These are 3 to 9 monomer molecules, polysaccharides, also called as the oligosaccharide. This will break into down, and this start in the mouth and continues in the stomach also till how long? Till stomach pH drops below 4, that there in stomach there is gastric secretion, and gastric secretion mainly contains the hydrochloric acid that will, when the we eat the food, the secretion will be enhanced and the gastric secretion will decrease the pH, and this is the enzyme. You should also know that the enzyme action is specific for the temperature and pH range, like beyond certain range of the temperature and pH, enzyme will not work. So this occur till this limitation, and by then how much starch will be digested? 30 to 40% of the starch that we eat will be digested up to the stomach. Now remaining starches and this digested starches will reach to the small intestine. So digestion, let us see the digestion in the small intestine. Digestion in small intestine. In small intestine there is duodenum, and first part duodenum, there is the pancreatic duct. Through pancreatic duct, pancreatic salivary amylase will be released there. So in small intestine, this remaining starches will be digested again into the maltose plus 3 to 9 polymers of the monosaccharides, monosaccharides by the pancreatic alpha amylase, pancreatic alpha amylase. It comprises the 50 to 80% of the starches will be digested in the small intestine, mostly in the duodenum and upper part of the jejunum. So, this digestion will occur. Now, there are the oligosaccharides and disaccharides. Look, let us see the digestion of this remaining oligosaccharides and disaccharides again in the small intestine. Further digestion. We are still in the digestion of carb in the small intestine. So, this maltose, okay, I will mention here, it will be easier. Maltose and these oligosaccharides will be digested into the glucose. You know, the two molecules of the glucose form the maltose disaccharide. So, glucose by the enzyme alpha dextrinase and maltase. This maltase mainly digests this disaccharide maltose into glucose, two molecules of glucose, and alpha dextrinase this oligosaccharides into the glucose. So, this is the digestion. Then remaining disaccharides are the sucrose. It will be digested into fructose and glucose. You know, by the enzyme sucrase that fructose and glucose form the sucrose disaccharide. Then there is also the major source lactose, and this will be digested by the enzyme lactase into the galactose and glucose monosaccharides. Glucose. Attention please. What I am trying to show is that, see here, the major product is the glucose from this starches, and from these disaccharides one each monosaccharide is the glucose and one is the another, means total digested amount of the monosaccharides that will be produced 80%, greater than 80% is glucose. Digested product of the carbohydrates 80%, more than 80% is the glucose, and less than 10% is other monosaccharides like fructose, galactose and few others, other monosaccharides. This is again your could be the probable MCQ and viva questions. Now, while eating the carbohydrate sources, we also eat the cellulose, and this is the important constituent of the cell wall of all plant cell. So, we are eating this cellulose too, and this is digested by the cellulase enzyme into the glucose. But when we talk about the omnivorous, and carnivorous animal, this enzyme is deficient in omnivorous and carnivorous animal including human. So cellulose cannot be digested by the human. This is the important MCQ and viva question. The reason is absence of the enzyme cellulase. So pay attention on this, and this digestion will completed as soon as food uh, as long as food reach in the duodenum and upper jejunum, then absorption of these monosaccharides will occur. Now we will talk about the absorption. For absorption, I will draw a photo so that it will be very clear and easier to understand. Let us suppose this is the lumen of the small intestine, lumen, and this is the interstitium, interstitium, and here will be the blood vessels that will carry this digested and absorbed monosaccharides, blood vessels, and this is the basolateral membrane. What happens is that on basolateral membrane there is the sodium potassium pump. It will transport 2 potassium in and 3 sodium out, you know it, by the action of the sodium potassium ATPase enzyme, which is the active transport pump, primary active transport pump. Now this is creating the lower intracellular sodium concentration. Now in the lumen there are the sodium also, and besides this monosaccharides, then there are specific transporters sorry, there is a specific transporter called as the, this you call as the sodium glucose type 1 transporter, and again here is the same sodium glucose type 1 transporter. What they will do, it will transport in same direction sodium and glucose, and here will happen the same sodium, and another molecule is the galactose. Now what remain then, the monosaccharides, major monosaccharides are the fructose, and this fructose will be transported by the transport system GLUT 5. GLUT 5 will be transporting this fructose, and on this basolateral membrane there is the transporter known as glucose transporter type 2. This will transport all galactose, glucose, and the fructose by this GLUT2 transporter, and ultimately to the blood vessels. Now attention please, This is the primary active transport occurring on the basolateral membrane, and this is creating the electrochemical gradient. By the using of this electrochemical gradient, this glucose and galactose are co-transported with the sodium by the secondary active transport mechanism. So, you have important examples of the secondary active transport mechanism in this sodium glucose transporter type 1, very important. And this GLUT5 transport this fructose by facilitated diffusion. Here is no use of the energy, either directly or indirectly, hence this is the facilitated diffusion. Example is the GLUT5 is the example of facilitated diffusion. In diffusion and in cellular transport you can write this example too. This, and again this GLUT2 glucose transporter type 2 is transporting these molecules by facilitated diffusion, that is passive diffusion, passive transport into the interstitium and ultimately to the blood vessels. So this is the different type of the transport mechanism examples. Then question, yes, okay, then MCQ and viva questions will be like that glucose transporter, mainly the glucose transport occurs by which mechanism? The active transport. If further you have to clarify, write the secondary active transport mechanism. Fructose transported by which transporter? You have to mention this type, and by which mechanism? The facilitated diffusion. Here also the and basolateral membrane, all monosaccharides will be transported by the GLUT2 by mechanism facilitated diffusion. So this is the transport of the absorption of the monosaccharides. Hope you enjoyed the lecture. Thank you for watching.